A cop pulled me over just to laugh at me. He thought his badge made him untouchable. I took his badge, his gun, and his career with paperwork. Hey Reddit, so my wife's boyfriend decided my busted taillight was a good excuse to learn my address. Yeah, that's where this starts. Dude was a cop. Off duty, on duty, didn't matter. He treated that badge like it made him bulletproof and everyone else like extras in his personal movie. The thing is, I work in state regulatory compliance. I'm basically a professional snitch for the comptroller's office. Except instead of snitching on people, I catch government employees cooking their books, lying on reports, and abusing their power. 33 male, audit expense accounts, fleet vehicle logs, overtime claims, and disciplinary files across 12 state-funded agencies. I read policy manuals the way most people scroll through menus at a restaurant. Every filing deadline, every oversight committee, every public records law in this state. Memorized. I am telling you all that because it matters. Because when a cop decided to sleep with my wife and then flash his badge at me like I was supposed to fold, he didn't realize he was starting a fight with the one guy on earth who knew exactly how to take him apart. Not with fists, with forms. My wife Jillian and I had been married 5 years, together 8. She taught 4th grade at a Title I school. Dedicated, warm, the kind of teacher who remembered every kid's birthday. We had a 3-bedroom ranch house, 2 paid-off cars, and a golden retriever named Nux, who was absolutely convinced he was a lapdog, despite weighing 87 pounds. Anyway, the taillight. I was driving home from work on a Wednesday in March and got pulled over maybe 6 blocks from my house. Blue lights in the rear view, the whole show. I pulled over, parked, rolled my window down. The cop who walked up looked like a recruiting poster came to life. 6'2", jawline like someone drew it with a ruler. Department sunglasses on, even though the sun was basically already down. Badge number 4417. I clocked both details because that's literally what pays my mortgage. Noticing stuff other people don't. License and registration. I handed them over. He looked at my license way longer than he needed to. Looked at it, looked at me, looked at it again. Something shifted behind those sunglasses. This flicker of recognition I couldn't make sense of yet. Dorian, you live on Ridgecrest? I do. He handed everything back. No citation. Didn't even run my plates. Or at least didn't seem to. Just hit me with this look I couldn't place at the time, but would later figure out was somewhere between amused and possessive. Taillights out. Get it fixed. Then he leaned on my door frame all casual, like we were neighbors shooting the breeze. You know, people don't realize how much I can see about them in 2 clicks. Address, vehicles, priors, employment. Your whole life on a little green screen. Wild, right? He said it like fun trivia. Like a party trick he'd done 100 times and liked watching people react to. That's it? I asked. That's it. Drive safe, bud. He walked back to his cruiser. I watched in the mirror. He just sat there for a solid minute. Didn't leave, didn't run anything through his computer that I could tell. Just sat, watching me drive toward my own house. Weird interaction. Filed it away mentally. Moved on. 3 weeks later, I came home early on a Friday. Budget project wrapped ahead of schedule, and I was home by 2:15, planning to take Nux on a long walk and surprise Jillian with reservations at that Italian place she'd been wanting to try. Her car was in the driveway. So was a charcoal gray Dodge Charger with tinted windows and a thin blue line sticker on the bumper. No department markings. Personal vehicle. I knew that car. It had been parked behind me 3 weeks ago with its blue lights going. I sat in my truck for a full minute. Engine running. Hands on the wheel. Not because I didn't know what was happening inside. I knew. Some part of me had known since that traffic stop. Since the way Brock said my name like he was tasting something he'd tried before. Since the way Jillian started putting her phone face down on the counter whenever I walked into the room. Since she started showering before I got home when she used to shower before bed. You don't do fraud work for 7 years without getting a gut feeling for when numbers don't add up. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to read them. I turned the engine off, got out, walked to the front door. Locked. Jillian never locked the front door during the day because Nux needed the backyard, and she liked the cross breeze. But today it was locked because somebody inside needed privacy for something that required a locked door. I used my key, stepped in. The house smelled wrong. His cologne, something loud and department store, the kind that announces itself from 10 feet out, just sitting on top of the normal smell of our house like oil on water. Nux's water bowl had been moved from its usual spot by the kitchen island to the corner by the pantry. Little thing. The kind of thing you do when someone who doesn't live there keeps kicking it. Nux met me at the door, tail going, totally unbothered. I got down and rubbed his ears. Good boy. At least somebody in this house was loyal. I could hear them. Not loud, not dramatic. Just the sounds of two people who thought they had the place to themselves. A voice that wasn't mine saying her name in a way that told me this wasn't the first time. Here's what I need you to understand about this moment. Every revenge story on here has the guy kicking in the door, screaming, throwing hands, catching a case. That's what they want you to do. That's what a cop especially wants you to do. Because the second you swing on law enforcement, even off duty, even in your own house, even when he's in your bed with your wife, you become the criminal. You get arrested, you get charged, you get a record, and he gets to play victim. I'm not dumb, and I don't hand people ammo. I walked back outside, sat on my front porch, snapped a picture of his charger in my driveway, time-stamped, picture of the front door, picture of our house number clear from the street. Then I opened the Notes app on my phone and started typing. Date, time, location, vehicle description, plate number, badge number from the traffic stop, officer's first name, Brock, duration of visit, ongoing. I sat there for 47 minutes, and I'm not going to pretend those were 47 calm minutes. My hands were shaking for the first 10. I typed the same sentence 3 times because my fingers wouldn't work right. I picked up my phone twice to text him something. I don't even know what. Something ugly. Something that would have felt good for 3 seconds and then lived in a screenshot forever. Put the phone down both times. Opened the Notes app again. Kept typing. I wanted to go back inside. I wanted to open that bedroom door and watch his face when he realized the husband was home. I wanted to see him scramble. I wanted that so bad it was physical. This tightness in my chest like my ribs were closing in. But I sat there. Because the version where I kick the door down is the version where he wins. And I don't lose to guys like him. He came out the front door at 3:04 p.m., hair messed up, shirt untucked on one side. The kind of details you don't notice when you're rushing, but that light up like neon when someone's watching. And I was watching. He saw me on the porch steps, froze for exactly 1 second. This tiny flash of surprise before the training kicked in. Cops learn to control their face. He was good at it, but I was better at reading it. Then he did the thing that sealed his fate. He smiled. Not a caught-in-the-act smile, a confident one. The kind of smile from a guy who just sized up the situation and decided I wasn't a threat. He straightened his jacket, squared up, and reached into his back pocket to pull out his badge wallet. Not because he needed to, not because the situation called for it, but to make sure I saw it. Held it out just long enough for it to be a prop. This practiced little move, letting the gold catch the light, like a poker player flashing his chip stack before the cards are even dealt. Dorian. He said it like we were old friends. Like he'd been saying it for a while because Jillian probably told him everything about me. Look, man, you should leave. I get that you're upset, but let's not make this into something it doesn't need to be. He flashed this grin. Don't make me do paperwork here, all right? Like filing a report against me was an inconvenience he wanted to spare me from. Like the threat was a favor. Get off my property. He sized me up. That cop thing. Body language. Threat level. Odds of things going sideways. I was sitting down. Hands visible. Voice flat. No weapon. Nothing he could work with. Just take it easy. Nobody needs to do anything crazy. He tapped his badge wallet again. Subtle. Almost like a reflex. Then he looked back toward my front door. My house. And said, "She's a good girl, Dorian. It's not her fault." A good girl. Like she was a golden retriever he was training. Standing on my porch, in front of my home, talking about my wife like she was property he'd checked out and approved. He left, walked to his charger with that slow, no-rush swagger. Even turned back once to look at me, making sure I was watching, making sure I knew he wasn't scared. Good. Comfortable people slip up. Jillian showed up in the doorway behind me. I could feel her standing there without turning around. Could smell the perfume I'd bought her for her birthday. The one she was apparently wearing for him now. Dorian, please let me explain. How long? It's not what you... Jillian, how long? It's... How long? Silence. Then, since February. February. The month before the traffic stop. The stop where he looked at my license, learned my name, learned my address, and apparently decided my humiliation was a spectator sport. 7 weeks. That I knew about. He pulled me over in March, I said. Knew my name. Knew where I lived. Was he already sleeping with you then? She didn't answer. Which was an answer. Did he use his access to look me up? Run my plates? Check my schedule? Dorian, you're being paranoid. Did he? Silence. I stood up, walked past her, went to the spare bedroom and closed the door. Nux followed me in and lay down at my feet like he understood the assignment. I opened my laptop. My hands were still shaking. I balled them into fists, pressed them against my legs until they stopped, and then I started building a file. Here's what most people don't get about cops. They're not untouchable. They just want you to think they are. Every law enforcement agency has oversight: internal affairs, civilian review boards, state licensing commissions, federal civil rights offices. The problem isn't that these systems don't exist. The problem is nobody knows how to use them. They're buried in red tape and written in language that's designed to make regular people give up. I deal with that kind of language for a living. This was home court. That Friday night, while Jillian cried in the living room and sent me 43 texts I didn't open, I started digging. Officer Brock, Badge 4, 417, 11 years on the County Sheriff's Department, Patrol Division, Sector 7, 2 Community Service Awards, 1 merit citation. On paper, a model cop. Exactly the type who'd never expect the system to come for him. I filed my first public records request Saturday morning. Open records law, done through the county's FOIA portal online. Requested every disciplinary action, complaint, and internal investigation tied to Brock for the past 5 years. Legal response window, 10 business days. But I didn't stop there. I also filed a separate FOIA request for the computer-aided dispatch log and the mobile data terminal activity for Brock's unit on the night of my traffic stop. If that stop was legit, there'd be a record somewhere, a dispatch call, a citation number, something. While I waited, I kept logging everything. Every text Jillian sent me. Every time Brock's Charger cruised past our street, which happened 3 times that first week, always during hours I'd normally be at work. I set up a cheap camera system from the hardware store. 2 cameras, 1 on the driveway, 1 on the street. $240. Best money I ever spent. I also sent a certified letter to the department's records office, asking them to preserve all body camera footage from Brock's shift on the night of my traffic stop. Cited the state's evidence preservation law. Made clear a formal complaint was coming, and that destroying relevant footage would be spoliation of evidence. Most agencies keep body cam footage on a 90-day cycle before it gets written over. My letter landed on day 12. Plenty of cushion. Zero excuse for accidental loss. Monday morning, I filed a formal complaint with the Sheriff's Internal Affairs Division. Wrote it myself. 3 pages, single-spaced. Cold, professional language, zero emotion. The complaint laid out that Officer Brock ran an unauthorized traffic stop to get my personal info, then used that info to figure out my home address and daily routine, and that he'd been sleeping with my wife while possibly using law enforcement databases to pull it all off, and that all of it was a misuse of his authority and a violation of department policy on database access. I cited specific policy numbers pulled straight from their publicly posted manual, the ones covering unauthorized database use, conduct that discredits the department, and the rule that every database search has to have a documented law enforcement reason behind it. I also cited the state's Criminal Justice Information Services law, which makes unauthorized access to cop databases a misdemeanor, not a felony, not prison, but a criminal charge that ends a law enforcement career real quick. 2 copies, kept 1, sent 1 certified mail, return receipt. Then I waited. Jillian tried everything that first week. It didn't mean anything. It lasted months. It meant something. He came after me. I was vulnerable. She unlocked the front door for him, over and over. You're always at work. I felt invisible. I was at work paying for the life she wanted someone else to enjoy. If you just paid more attention to me. There it is. My fault. I didn't engage, didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I just moved through the house like a ghost, sleeping in the spare room, eating at different times, writing everything down. Wednesday, I went to see a family law attorney. 2-hour session. Brought my whole file. She told me something that changed my entire approach. This is a fault state for divorce. Adultery is grounds. And if you can prove he used law enforcement resources to help the affair along, that makes your position in the property split a lot stronger. How much stronger? The house. Both vehicles. No alimony. Possibly a bigger share of retirement. I filed for divorce the next morning. Cited adultery. Named Brock in the paperwork. Public record. Searchable. Permanent. Day 10. Wait, actually it might have been day 11. Whatever, doesn't matter. Point is, Brock escalated. 1:14 a.m. I'm in the spare room, half asleep, Nux curled up on the floor next to the bed. 3 hard knocks on the front door. Not a doorbell. Not how a neighbor knocks. That specific cop knock. The heavy, open up it's the police rhythm every American knows from their worst nightmares. Nux's head snapped up. Low growl. He almost never barked. Just this deep rumble that said whoever was out there wasn't welcome. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. There he was, standing on my porch in regular clothes, arms crossed, staring right at the camera like he wanted me to know he knew it was there. Feet apart, shoulders squared, the stance of a guy who's used to showing up at people's doors and being let in. Knocked again, louder. My heart was going. I'll admit that. Something about a knock at 1 a.m. hits different when you know the guy out there carries a gun for a living and clearly thinks rules don't apply to him. For about 10 seconds, I actually considered calling 911. Then I imagined that conversation. Yeah, hi, I need to report an officer from your department standing on my porch. And the irony almost made me laugh. I didn't answer. Didn't yell through the door. Didn't give him a single thing to use. Just hit record on the camera and started a voice memo with the time and date. He stood there 4 minutes, shifted his weight, checked his phone, then leaned toward the door and said, "Loud enough for the camera to catch clean? Just wanted to check on you, brother. Make sure you're doing okay. That's all. Welfare check, right? That's what we do, brother." And then framing a 1 a.m. visit to my house as a welfare check, giving himself cover language in case anyone asked later. Then he said something quieter, but the mic got it. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Dorian. I know people. You don't want this becoming a thing? I know people. The go-to line of a guy who's used power as a personal weapon so many times it comes out like breathing. He left after 6 minutes. I saved everything. Time-stamped. Logged. Nux put his head back down but kept one eye on the door for another hour. That footage became Exhibit B. The CAD log came back before the full FOIA response. 5 pages. And one detail blew the whole thing wide open. Brock's traffic stop the night he pulled me over was logged as self-initiated. No dispatch call, no assignment, no citation, no warning on file. Just a self-initiated stop with the note, equipment violation, verbal warning. But here's what made the department sweat. The MDT access logs showed my name was searched in the law enforcement database 14 minutes before the stop happened. 14 minutes before he supposedly spotted my taillight, he was already searching my name. Not my plate number, which is what you'd run during a normal stop. My actual name. Like he already knew who I was and just wanted to see where I lived. That meant one of two things. Either Jillian already told him about me and he was doing recon, or he'd gotten my info some other way and targeted her through the school visit. Either way, the search had zero law enforcement reason behind it. No incident number, no case reference. Just my name, my address, my vehicle registration, and my employer. All pulled from a patrol car 14 minutes before he lit me up. He didn't pull me over because my taillight was out. He pulled me over because he wanted to look at the face of the guy whose wife he was sleeping with. The taillight was the excuse. The badge was the tool. One detail. One search log. One timestamp that didn't line up with the story. That's the kind of thing that makes a department think, we're about to be on the news. The full FOIA came back on day 8, 2 days before the legal deadline, which told me somebody in records was paying attention. 47 pages. And man, they were beautiful. Brock had 3 prior complaints. One from 2019. A woman saying he'd pulled her over multiple times for no reason after she ended a relationship with him. Finding. Insufficient evidence. One from 2021. A guy claiming Brock ran his plates and showed up at his job after a road rage thing. Finding. Exonerated. One from 2022. A woman saying Brock pulled her personal info from law enforcement databases after they matched on a dating app. Finding. Not sustained. 3 complaints. 3 different people. Same exact pattern. Using his badge and his database access to track down and intimidate people for personal reasons. 3 times the system looked at that pattern and decided it wasn't one. The thing is, most people file one complaint and quit when nothing happens. What they don't realize is that complaints stack up. Each one sits in a file. Each one adds weight. Internal Affairs might wave off complaint number 1, maybe explain away number 2. But complaint number 4, backed by MDT logs and camera footage and a documented pattern across 3 other people. That's the one where somebody finally says, we've got a liability problem. Liability. That's the word that actually moves things in government. Not justice, not fairness. Liability. I put together a follow-up filing for my IA complaint. Attached the FOIA results. Drew direct lines between the old complaints and what happened to me. Used the same formatting I'd use in audit reports that go to agency directors and state legislators. Clean, cold, brutal. I also pre-wrote answers for every defense I knew he'd try. The stop was routine. MDT logs say otherwise. The relationship was consensual? Doesn't matter. Database misuse is database misuse. The prior complaints were unfounded. 3 identical patterns across 4 years say different. His off-duty life is private? Not when he flashes his badge during it. Then I sent copies to 3 more places. The County Civilian Police Review Board, the State Law Enforcement Standards Commission that controls his certification, and the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division. Every filing referenced the others. Can't bury something quietly when 4 different offices all have the same folder on their desk. ICC the county sheriff directly. Elected official. Answers to voters. The kind of guy who gets real nervous when the AG's office starts asking about his officers. 1 week of paperwork, 0 punches, 0 laws broken. And Brock's career was sitting under 4 separate microscopes. The cameras earned their money again on day 16, 11:47 p.m. Brock's Charger rolled past my house, slow. Headlights off. Drove by once, turned around at the end of the block, came back. Parked across the street for 6 minutes, then left. Saved the footage, time-stamped. Filed another amended complaint. Sent copies to all 4 places. 3 weeks after I filed the original complaint, Internal Affairs brought me in for a formal interview. 2 investigators, conference room, recording equipment on the table. They asked me to walk through everything from the top. I did, in order, with documentation for every single claim, printed and organized in a 3-ring binder with labeled tabs. One of the investigators, a lieutenant who'd clearly been doing this for 20 years, looked at my binder, looked at me and goes, "You're very thorough. I do this for a living. Investigate people?" Something like that. He nodded slow, wrote something down. His partner glanced at it and her eyebrows went up. Divorce moved fast. Jillian's attorney tried to push for mediation, wanted to keep things friendly. Her first offer was a joke. 50-50 split, shared equity, mutual no fault. As if the guy named in the divorce filing wasn't currently under 4 active investigations. My attorney hit back with our counter. The house, both cars, full retention of my retirement accounts, no alimony either way. She keeps her personal stuff and her teacher pension. Clean cut. Jillian's side called it unreasonable. My attorney sent over the binder, including the diary entries I'd found on Jillian's iPad. She'd been journaling the whole affair in her notes app like it was a confessional. One entry from late January, before I even knew his name. Met someone, came into the school for a safety presentation, couldn't stop looking at him, felt guilty the whole drive home, texted him anyway. He'd walked into her school in uniform, stood in front of her classroom, talked about crossing guards and stranger danger, walked out with her phone number. Then the entry that gutted me. From March, the night of the traffic stop. B pulled D over today. Said it was hilarious. Said D had no idea. I feel terrible but also alive for the first time in years. B pulled D over. She knew about it. Knew it was on purpose. Knew he was using his badge to scout her husband. And she thought it was funny. My humiliation was her adrenaline rush. Screenshot everything. Printed it. Added it to every active file. Her attorney came back with a new offer 2 days later. Accepted everything except the second car. We went back and forth for about 40 minutes and settled on me keeping the truck. Her keeping the other car. One of our last conversations before it was all done, Jillian tried one more time. Standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, voice shaking, but not from sadness. From something else. Something she thought was a defense. He called me his civilian, Dorian. Like I was special. Like I mattered. When's the last time you made me feel like that? His civilian. Dude referred to my wife like she was a jurisdiction he'd claimed. Like the rest of us were a different species he was policing. And she thought that was romance. I didn't answer. Nothing left to say. Divorce finalized in 63 days. Nux came with me. That wasn't up for debate. The judge didn't even hesitate. My attorney showed vet records, adoption papers, and 3 years of receipts all under my name. Internal Affairs wrapped their investigation at week 9. Finding: sustained on 3 of 4 charges. Unauthorized database access. Conduct unbecoming. Failure to report a conflict of interest with a civilian he'd previously stopped in an official capacity. 4th charge came back not sustained due to lack of direct evidence. But 3 out of 4 was plenty. His defense was predictable. According to the IA summary, Brock told investigators that Jillian pursued him, that she initiated contact after the school presentation, that she texted first, invited him over, kept the relationship going, threw her under the bus without hesitating. Same guy who called her a good girl on my porch was now painting her as the aggressor to save his own career. His civilian. Disposable the second she became a liability instead of a thrill. Brock didn't get to turn in his badge quiet. He didn't get a closed-door meeting in some back office. He got pulled off patrol mid-shift on a Tuesday afternoon. A sergeant met him at a traffic call. Brock was running radar on a county road. Same routine he'd done for 11 years. Sergeant told him to follow him back to the station. Didn't say why over the radio. Just, follow me back. Every cop listening knew what that meant. Back at the station, they walked him into the captain's office with the day shift watching. Gun taken at the desk. Badge slid across the table. Keys to the take-home charger handed over on the spot. They boxed up his locker while he sat there. They had the charger towed out of the lot that afternoon. Flatbed truck, broad daylight. He had to call somebody for a ride because he'd driven the cruiser in that morning. same as he had every morning for over a decade. 11 years on the force, and his last trip out was riding shotgun in someone else's car. The Civilian Review Board finished their investigation 2 weeks later. Finding: pattern of behavior consistent with abuse of authority. Recommended termination. State Law Enforcement Standards Commission sent notice after that. Brock's peace officer certification was under formal review. If they pulled it, he couldn't work as a cop anywhere in the state. Not the county next door. Not campus security. Nowhere. 4 filings, 4 investigations, and the guy who held his badge out on my porch like a hall pass from God was sitting at home with no badge, no gun, no paycheck, and no future in law enforcement. I didn't swing. I filed. House sold in 19 days. I walked away with enough to put a down payment on a 2-bedroom condo in a gated complex with security cameras I didn't have to install myself. Nux adjusted right away. He didn't care about square footage. He cared about who walked through the door. I threw myself into work. Took on the audit nobody wanted. 3 agency procurement review. 11,000 pages of vendor contracts. Found $340,000 in duplicate payments and a contract officer funneling bids to his brother-in-law's construction company. Criminal referral. The guy resigned before charges landed, but the agency got the money back. That's what I do with pain. I file, I organize, I find patterns. When I'm done, something broken works again. My director bumped me to senior analyst. 15% raise, my own caseload. Brock's disciplinary hearing happened 4 months after the suspension. Outcome was public record. Termination. Effective immediately. Lost his benefits. Permanently ineligible for rehire at any county agency. State Licensing Commission moved 3 weeks after that. Certification revoked. A documented pattern of database misuse and conduct inconsistent with the standards required of certified peace officers. Done. Not just fired from one department. Locked out of the entire profession. Every agency in the state would see that revocation the second they ran his name. He started applying for private security gigs. 3 firms turned him down because the revocation showed up in their background checks. Eventually, he picked up shifts doing loss prevention at a retail store. Badge to name tag. Cruiser to break room. The union tried to fight it. Filed a grievance. Wanted arbitration. But arbitration means reviewing the evidence. And the evidence was a 4-inch stack of paperwork that told a story even the friendliest arbitrator couldn't spin. They dropped it 6 weeks in. His ex-wife, turns out Brock had already been divorced 3 years before any of this, filed to change their custody arrangement based on the termination. Used the same public records I'd created. I wasn't involved at all, but the documentation had taken on its own life by then, floating through systems I never meant it to reach. That's the thing about truth. Once you put it into the system, it goes where it goes. You don't have to push. Just make sure it's accurate, organized, and out there. The fallout came in waves. Brock cut Jillian off 3 days after his suspension. No conversation, just stopped answering. She found out through a co-worker's husband who knew someone at the department that he'd called her a liability and told IA she was the one who pursued him. His civilian. Special, right up until the moment she cost him something. The school pulled her into a professional conduct meeting 2 weeks after the divorce filing hit public records. Small town district, everybody talks. The principal framed it as concerns about classroom focus. But what she really meant was 2 parents had already requested their kids be transferred out of Jillian's class. Her grade level team stopped including her in lunch plans. Someone removed her from the 4th grade teachers group chat without a word. She resigned at the end of the school year. Didn't wait to be pushed. Moved back in with her parents. 31 and starting over from 0. Her parents mailed me a letter 3 months after the divorce. Said they were sorry, that they'd raised her better. I read it once, folded it, put it in a drawer. Brock tried reaching out once, 8 months after his termination. Handwritten letter, forwarded through my attorney. First paragraph. Dorian, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know that what happened between me and Jillian was never about disrespecting you. I take full responsibility. Full responsibility. Interesting line from a guy who said, "Don't make me do paperwork," while standing on my porch uninvited. Also interesting from a guy who told Internal Affairs the whole thing was her idea. Didn't read the rest. Sent it to my attorney with instructions to fire off a cease and desist. 14 months after the divorce, I met Josephine at a compliance training seminar. She investigated fake insurance claims for the state commission. We started talking during a coffee break about audit methods. Most people's eyes glaze over when you bring up audit methods. Hers lit up. 3rd date, I told her everything. The whole ugly story. She listened without cutting in. Then she goes, "So you fought a cop using regulatory compliance procedures?" Pretty much, yeah. That's the most attractive thing anyone's ever said to me. She wasn't kidding. And I knew right then this was somebody who saw the actual me, not the version Jillian wanted me to be. 2 years later, we bought a house together. 3 bedrooms, yard big enough for Nux to do laps, and a shared home office because we both brought work home and neither of us felt bad about it. Last month, I was at the hardware store grabbing lumber for a bookshelf Josephine designed. Nux was in the truck with the windows down, tongue out, living his absolute best life. Turned a corner in the fastener aisle and almost walked right into him. Brock, red polo and khaki, name tag on his chest. Working the floor at a home improvement store, which I guess was a step up from checking receipts at retail. He recognized me instantly. I watched it happen. The flash, something heavy settling behind his eyes, then the attempt at neutral. Almost made it, but his hands gave him away. Went to his belt first, reflex reach for gear that wasn't there anymore, then his pockets, then just hung at his sides. Dorian, Brock, neither of us moved. Aisle was empty, just us and 40 feet of stainless steel screws. He looked different, smaller somehow. Not physically, the swagger was gone. That confidence you get from knowing you've got a badge and a gun and a whole institution behind you. Without all that, he was just a dude in a polo shirt who needed a haircut. Name tag just said Brock, first name. No title, no badge number, just Brock. The most ordinary version of a guy who used to think he was untouchable. Look, he started. I'm just here for deck screws. He nodded, swallowed whatever he was going to say, then defaulted to the only authority he had left, knowing where stuff was on the shelves. Right, aisle 14, 3-inch stainless steel, go with the star drive, not Phillips. Phillips strip out and treated lumber. I stood there a second, waited for something to hit. Satisfaction, anger, pity, whatever. But there was nothing. Not fake nothing, not holding it in nothing. Just a guy in a polo shirt telling me which screws to buy. That was it. That's all he was now. And I realized the real win wasn't the termination or the revocation or the 4-inch binder. The win was standing 3 feet from the man who blew up my life and feeling absolutely nothing about him. Walked past him, got my screws, self-checkout, drove home with the windows down and Nux's head hanging out the passenger side, ears going everywhere. Josephine was in the yard when I pulled up, sketching changes to the bookshelf design on graph paper. Sawdust on her jeans, pencil behind her ear. She looked like the best thing that ever happened to me because she was. Got everything? Yeah. Set the bags down. Looked at my house, my dog, my partner. The life I built with my own hands after somebody tried to torch the old one. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.